Hello, guys, and welcome to another episode of What If Civilization Started Over. In the last episode, we saw the entirety of World War One, including the events leading up to it. And in this episode, we will be taking a look at the peace treaty of World War One and a couple of the after events. So, we'll start off in North America, and pretty much all that happens up here is two things. First, Alicia will be getting over a lot of the West French colony, and including their claim is now gone. This land right here will still remain. It's West French though. For Greenland, they will be getting that from North France, and that will remain as North French. Down here, Denmark gets all of this. So Denmark's colony expands. If you think that was bad, Catalonia's colony now looks like that. They annex all of this land up here, and these. They will even be getting some of that. Some of the land that these two countries got. The Niger country will be taking that, and the Saharan nation will be taking that. For the Adriatic Sea nation, they will be getting their land back there. And down here, North France will be able to keep their land, and same with the Scientine. So now the colonies of the world are looking a whole lot different. And that definitely does not change down here, as pretty much the nations that invaded will take almost all or all of their claimed land, or the land that they had taken. The only bit of land left is, firstly, up here, Catalonia gets that, and Catalonia will also be given that back. Keep using the word like that in this and stuff. I should probably stop. Alright. These parts of northern Australia will go back to Sumatra, but the rest of this peninsula will go to the Northern Australian nation. Up here, we don't really see much changing, other than I forgot to do the peace treaty for this nation. I forgot this nation existed, so I'll come back to over here. But Papua New Guinea will be getting that. Full annexation, except for this island. So, what was once East Indonesian New Guinea is now just the smallest nation in the world, owning like 3 pixels, but I'm going to expand this island here. There. Alright. Let's see, Europe will be last. So we will come over here. Part of the treaty is already done. I forgot to fully do it. Or, like, fully, something. I don't remember. But, you see, North China will actually be given quite a lot of land back to them. However, most of it is like kind of hard to use. You've got northern parts in Manchuria, and down here are like kind of hard to use. But then you've got all of this, which is good for population and stuff. Up here, there is no border changes. And the only thing that happens up here is the claim over this land is removed. Yes, Russia technically lost that part of the war. Okay. So that's not what's supposed to happen. That's what's supposed to happen. Right. So now you kind of see the Korean Empire begins forming. And there are also only two claims over another piece of land in the entire world. Right here, RPGAU and the Great Empire, and down here between India and West France. Now, we come up to Europe, and this is gonna look different. So, it appears I accidentally already made Catalonia annex all the land, probably from all of this, actually. So that means I have to look at the province and follow the province. So Gibraltar will remain with this and these islands down here. And for the Dark Sign team, well, firstly, they lost their capital. That the capital will no longer exist. They will actually remain, or they will keep their claim over these islands, and that is it. Now, because I messed this up on accident, West France will be getting all of this. But I don't see now. I don't remember what the borders are. So, um, actually, I'm going to pause and redraw some borders. So I fixed the border here. All of this land will go over to a green nation. Technically, it's not new. I'm just saying, technically. So this, you see a light blue nation form up here, and these two nations were actually the original colors. This was the original color for North France, and this was the original color for Italy, but as you can see, that had changed. I'm going to, this will be a part of this nation in a second. Over here, you see a lot of this land just kind of is all jumbled up together. But we see this new Alpine nation forming, and it's much larger than the previous one. Now for um, Germany, they'll be getting all of this land. And they'll make an agreement with the Dutch team to not split any land between the two nations. Great, I forgot this part too. Alright, well, let us do that. Alright, fix that up. So, North France will be getting all of this land. And for the last bit of land gains, see the Adriatic nation and all of this. Um, I'm not too sure what that is. It'll go to Czechia, though. I think it's rightfully theirs. That looks right. Alright, now we see the Adriatic nation. It's Sicily, most of the southern part of the Italian peninsula. And we see a new nation forming here, being like Rome, I guess. Though also over Corsica, over Sicily, Catalonia. Now for the final part of the peace treaty is the divisions of the core territories of of Switzerland and Italy. So as we saw, West France will be getting these two provinces and these two provinces. Um, I'm going to be using this color for here. Catalonia, getting that. Germany will be taking over only part, and down here, the Adriatic nation will be taking that. Alright, now for the final part, the actual capital province of the two nations will go over to the Great Empire. So that in. So we see the three big nations that got land from both areas were North France, West France, and Catalonia. Germany got some out of Switzerland, and Italy, and the Adriatic nation got some out of Italy. And now let's go through the capitals of the new nations and some of the old nations even. Alright, so this will become the new capital of the Adriatic nation. It's relatively centralized outside of their colony. Uh, yes, these guys, these guys will be getting this. So Portugal will have this as their new capital. This Central Front nation, I guess. Um, I don't. So we have two Central French nations. So I don't know. I don't know. I'm probably gonna call these guys the Central France, maybe East France and Central France. Alright. The Alpine nation will have this as their new capital. Although, actually, I believe this is their old capital. Lastly, for Rome, they don't have much room, but that will be their capital all the way down there. Alright. Still a couple spots where we need a capital city. For China, their capital will be in. I think this is probably one of the furthest away from any other nation. So at this point, they only order their enemies. I'll fix up the alliances in a second too. But Alright, and I think that is it for these, for the new capitals. And now we take a look at couple more events for this episode. Firstly, being on the Alliance layer, the Circle Alliance is almost pretty much completely disbanded at this point. All that remains in it is China. All four of these nations will leave the Alliance. And with the Square Alliance, so all of these nations here have left the alliances. For the Cross Alliance, no member will leave. Circle Alliance, again, in Europe, the two Iberian nations leave it. For the Square Alliance, however, it is just, other than in Asia, it is completely disbanded and becomes the East Asian Alliance. The Circle Alliance will now just remain as Dutch team, Russia, the um, Czechian-ish nation. I don't really know. Maybe like Belarus or something. And China. So that will do it for the alliances. Now we see another event happening. While the war was ongoing, we saw Greenland. Like like I had said, Greenland is quite strong for their like size. I don't know if I actually said that or not. Greenland will fund a rebellion in this, or they funded a rebellion in this area, and only now is it finally like, fully breaking out. But this rebellion will quite quickly spread across these areas. As like North France, they had all their troops either up here or over here, which is where most of them were. So now they're gonna have to redeploy troops up here, but by that time, pretty much the entire colony will fall, and it's just part of this northern area left, as there were some troops out here. But even still, as Greenland is like quite strong, and Greenland is stronger than these guys here, the rebellion will succeed, and it backfires. But not in like the way you might think. It's way down south on the Gulf of Mexico. I still call it the Gulf of Mexico, yes. Taking a look at these provinces, a large rebellion pops up in these southern ones. And quite quickly, it'll spread to a couple of the neighboring provinces. Now, I don't know if you recognize it yet, but these are the original 14 provinces that Catalonia had over this area. And all 14 will break away and form their own nation. All of this land breaks away. And they begin fighting. And eventually, their rebellion will spread in parts of the Floridian colony that was once Swiss, and is now Danish, will fall over, and we see more regions begin breaking away. The next group we see is over here, Mexico, or more like California area. As we see these provinces here also break away, forming the like west or northwestern Mexican nation. So all of these provinces break away up there, and kind of sort of similar to how these ones here broke away. Some of the first Central American provinces of the Catalonian colonial empire will also break away, being these all of the colony or all of them that are south of here. And we see this rebellion, like it did before, will spread into other nations, especially with the American one. It will, after it gets a hold in the, after it gets a hold over Florida, we see the rebellion itself spreads up into the Scientine and especially into these provinces here. Now, you might not recognize it immediately, but maybe you do. But these provinces are all part of the two nations that once existed here, and a couple of them are from the Scientine, of course. Eventually, we see this nation will fully get its independence, and their capital will be right here. And this will further fuel these rebellions to spread out across the across North America. Does it stay in North America? No. Over in Australia, we see this Australian area will declare its independence as well. And at this point, I'm turning off provinces so we can see the map a bit better. Now, something about the Cross Alliance. It was formed against Switzerland and Italy. Or it was really formed after the war had kind of came to a stop. And it was between all these great European powers, or even some Asian ones. And um, it's really kind of like NATO is. However, I'm not sure if NATO really like protects against rebellions inside one of the member nations, but does the Cross Alliance? No, they do not. However, you've got three members are all in the Cross Alliance, so they will probably work together to stop this. However, the Square Alliance does do this, where they will help a nation if it begins to collapse. So this breakaway state will actually just like refrain from going into South China. However, they will invade into Catalonia. And similar to with the North French rebellion, uh, like all of Catalonia's troops were really fighting in World War I here. A couple of them down in South America and Africa. There were some over in Australia, but that's mainly where they're mainly in the rebellion. So we see this rebellion is able to spread throughout the area, like throughout Catalonia's colony, as well as the Scientines and parts of the new da- Danish colony, and even parts of the old areas. So we see the red team, or we see the Red Rebellion spread into Cuba and areas up in here. We'll also invade into the Catalonian areas in Mexico, and they'll be able to take about all of this. For the American Rebellion, they make landings throughout the Bahamas and eventually will come down to here. They will also be able to push a bit into the Catalonian colony, and they will take over all of this. West, or like the Western Mexico / Californian rebellion. That's about all they'll take out. But the invasion into the Cyan team continues on going. And these rebellions, I mean, they're being funded by, um, they're obviously being funded by Greenland, but it doesn't seem like it's just Greenland funding them. It seems like there's another power that's maybe against, maybe not just Catalonia, but maybe the Cross Alliance as a whole. So we see Mexico will continue invading up north, taking over all of this land. We see the Californian breakaway state will take over all of this, and the last remaining parts will fall to America. And we now see another country start supplying the rebellions, and then another, and another, and another, and another, and another. As pretty much every North American nation begins to supply the rebellions, specifically the American one, as it rapidly spreads out through the Cyan team, especially along the borders of Michigan and or just like north of Michigan. Really. And eventually, like the Cyan team's lost support getting to here. It gets cut off right in here. It's kind of hard to go up around here. Even still, it probably could get intercepted. So at this point, they have a pretty good time getting through here. Up in the north, it gets a bit harder. And eventually, America, Mexico, and West Mexico, after taking a little bit more land, will agree to deal out a peace treaty with the nations they've rebelled from. So we will take a look at what that looks like real quickly. Alright, so here we see what happens to these rebellions. The Californian Rebellion, the West Mexican, whichever you want to call it, will end up with all of this land. Quite a bit. Good for them. The Mexican Rebellion will actually only be getting that and their claim on Cuba. However, they've got a quite good population with what they have. We see this like Southeast American rebellion will be getting all of this, as well as right there in Florida. And finally, for our last couple of things, we see this like Texan-ish nation forming. It's like Texas, northern Mexico. And lastly, we see this Central American nation form. We will have all of this land. And this land here will go over to, or will remain in Danish. And then for the last part, most of Cuba, Jamaica, and all of these islands will go, you know what, they'll become this, do a brighter orange. They'll become this bright orange nation, maybe even brighter, like brighter but darker. There. It'll just be an orange nation, normal orange. Right. And then see two somewhat familiar faces if you watched my WICSO actually a good while ago now. All of this will be these two nations. They existed once a long time ago, and then they were annexed by the Cyan team, and now they have returned. Now we see the capital for these nations. I believe this is the capital they once had. For America, their capital will be placed kind of in the center. Texas place their capital right here. California will place this city as their capital. Mexico will have this major city as their capital. The Caribbean nation will have that as their capital. And Central America will have that major city as their capital. But that will do it for today's episode of What If Civilization Started Over. If you enjoyed, make sure to like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.